introduce you to Kat. So thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Abby, as you can see on my screen. I work with Barry, who is the founder of the London CTOs. Obviously London CTOs is one of the many communities that are run by RecWorks. We are a tech recruitment company with a massive difference. We believe as a company that actually recruitment can be a force for good in the industry beyond just placing people in jobs. We have a particular focus on learning, mentoring and personal development. From our perspective, if people out there want to learn and others want to teach or share knowledge, we are happy to connect those people through our communities and events like this. We see this as giving back to those we've worked with in the past, but also paying it forward to those we hope to work with in the future. We have run over 700 events for engineers and developers, students, graduates, CTOs like yourselves. We have run conferences, lightning talks, hackathons, all sorts of different events. And we've made over 3,000 introductions between mentors and mentees through our Meet to Mentor program as well. We love to give opportunities to speakers, and that is this event is part of that goal. If you want to know more about any of our communities, please do get in touch with myself or Barry, and we can take it from there. And we'd love to incorporate you into any of our other communities and events you'd like to be a part of. But with no further ado, I am going to introduce Kat. He's here to speak to us about how to upskill your teams to increase DevOps maturity. I am personally really excited to hear what he's got to say, and I hope you guys are too. So over to you, Kat. Thanks.
Hi everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Abby. Let me share my screen because I do have a few slides I can talk. So this is actually a talk that I did a few weeks back at the National DevOps Conference. It was this year at the British Museum. And it was the first conference I did after the COVID lockdown, so it's very nice to actually go to a physical conference, not an online one. I tweaked it a little bit because in that space I only had about 20-25 minutes. I added a few slides which I think is very useful in terms of adding more context to our conversation topic for today. But yeah, really excited to meet everyone here, and we can have a chat at the end to get your ideas and any questions I had as well. So the agenda for today is going to be split in between a few sections. I think we've got 4 or 5 items in the end. First of all, just briefly about our context, our purpose and goal for software development. We kind of fit into the broader scopes, and I'm not going to linger too much on that. We're going to be talking about what is upskilling, why we're talking about it, what is DevOps maturity, just to make sure that we have the same level of context and understanding. And then what should we be upskilling? What are the skills that we openly mention whenever we're talking about DevOps upskilling? And then explore a few ways to upskill. And then hopefully at the end you'll have a plan. You have something that you can go back to and try to include in your strategy and the direction to speak with your teams in terms of things that could help you with increasing DevOps maturity in your own context. So just before we crack on, just a little bit about myself. So my name is Catalin Stoiovici. I'm Cat for short. I've been working in software development for the last 15 years. So I'm originally from Romania. I moved to UK in 2015. Throughout my career, I've worn many hats. So I started as a software developer, then moved into more of a technical leadership role, like a technical lead, a team lead, played a little bit more for the role of architecture, the role of project manager, the role of Scrum Master more. And in the last few experiences, I've been focusing more on the engineering leadership space. I'm currently working at a company called Capco. They do consultancy. I'm a managing principal there, and I'm the head of scaled engineering delivery. It means I'm trying to build their engineering delivery capability. And also I'm working for, so I need to be billable at the end of the day. So I'm working for a global tier 1 bank where I drive a DevOps transformation program. So I'm the program lead for that, looking at one of the areas around database services. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. I was told by a good friend that all presentations they start with a good motto, and I picked this one because it's one of my favorite mottos. Is around learning. So it goes like this. The beautiful thing about learning is that nobody can take it away from you. And unfortunately, it wasn't written by a software developer. It's written by B.B. King, who I presume you know. If you don't know, he's an American blues singer and songwriter. So let's go back to basics. For my initial agenda, the purpose of the purpose and goal of software development. What's the purpose? Why are we doing things? And it's split it into two sections, and it's kind of borrowed from Dan Note as well. You can see he's showing face here at the top corner. So he did a talk a few years back, and was talking about the purpose and the goal of software development. So what's the purpose of software development? Is to create positive business impact. Everyone can create business impact. I can deliver something in production. I can deploy something in production, and then it's going to fail for some reason. That's still business impact. Users can use we are looking for positive business impact. We want to have new businesses, maybe more users, retention, profit, and so on. And if the purpose is clear, then what's the goal of software development? And the goal is to sustainably minimize lead time to business impact. And the key word here is really sustainable. We don't want to have bursts that will lead to trust. We want to minimize lead time. And that doesn't happen overnight. It is complex. It is something that we want to strive towards with our teams and our strategy. So if we put it in more context, and then we expand it from here, the goal of software engineering is not to produce software. We talked about the goal to minimize business impact, right? And that's shocking to lots of developers, right? But whenever we're talking about software, it makes us think about production, and we need to produce things, and that leads to being productive. And we think that being productive is a good thing, but there's a difference between being productive and being effective. What productivity is about getting things done. Effectiveness is about getting the right things done. Just because you're doing lots of things, it doesn't mean that you are being effective. And people run a considerable risk when they try to force most tasks into the bucket ineffectively, and I'm sure we've all been there. So if code is not really important, code is just means of delivering business value, then code is not really an asset. Code is the cost, and code is the cost from different type of angles. The first one is writing code. Writing code costs, right? We know we have to learn languages, we have to learn APIs. It's going to be time expensive, and from all points of view to write code. Waiting for code, waiting for other people to write code is a costly thing. It's not really adding a lot of value. Changing code costs as well, even if sometimes it's our own code, and maybe sometimes we don't even recognize the code that we've written. As well, it's been a long time since we've written that code, but changing other people's code is going to be more expensive also. And then finally, the understanding of code costs. We spend lots of time in going through code, trying to understand what are we trying to implement here, what do we need to change in order to accommodate any business requirements. So all those things, they do cost, and they do add up together. And I think just a conclusion on the first part about the context and the software development goal and purposes is that all code should be either stabilized or killed off, and we need to invest time, and we need to put it in our strategy as well to make sure that happens. But let's go back to our initial context of the day. We're talking about upskilling. What is upskilling, and why are we talking about it? In the micro context, upskilling refers to the process of individual learning new skills. On the macro level, however, it describes a tectonical shift in the workplace caused by us, by technologies. Technology has created new possibilities that can be fully realized only by a modernized workforce. That means that the workforce must learn new skills and competencies that are required for new or changing jobs. Upskilling really cuts across industries and is critical to individuals and employers alike. To be competitive in the digital age, individuals and companies require a learning for life mindset. They require collaboration with humans, and then lately with AI, with machines as well, and a willingness to embrace new ways of doing things. The digital age requires that workers, no matter the industry, so not just technical related, have technical skills and an ability to acquire new competencies required by a fluid marketplace. As technologists, I'm going to make an assumption that we tend to forget about the macro level definition, especially if we've always been working in IT. We noticed that when we have a new learning programming language, whenever we have to learn a new database, a new API. However, look at your older generation family and friends. Are they as snappy as you are with technology, or maybe they have not been upskilled? So now that we understand what upskilling is, let's look at how fast should you upskill? And the answer is pretty fast. Why? A couple of reasons. The first one is that the half-life of professional skills used to be 10 to 15 years. That means that you learn a skill and you keep it with you for the next 10 to 15 years to help you with your job. Today, the half-life of a learned skill is 5 years, and we know it's even shorter for technical skills. Another reason is the digital economy, or the so-called internet economy, or the new economy. The digital economy is undermining conventional notions about how businesses are structured, how firms interact, and how consumers obtain services, information, and goods. I'm in no way affiliated to Fishbone, but today we can track seafood using blockchain technology from when it was captured to when it arrives in our plates. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. The technology is there, it exists, which emphasizes the fact that human transformation is essential for digital transformation. And the fact has never been more apparent than in the past pandemic year, when global organizations had to shift the businesses more drastically with little or no notice. So what is DevOps maturity? What does DevOps maturity mean? And a reference to that is looking at Jim Kim's 3 ways, just touching on that a little bit. If you read either the Phoenix Project, the Unicorn Project, or the DevOps Handbook, you've been introduced to the 3 ways of framework for DevOps. The first way being about the principle of flow, the second way about the principle of feedback, and the third way about the principle of continuous learning. Together, they form a principle-based DevOps framework. In our space, it's going to be the third way. But just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, let's touch briefly on the first way. So the first way is mostly concerned with accelerating the flow of working through a product process. So whether you're calling flow or system thinking, the principles underpinning the first way are working towards the same end, viewing the flow of work as a continuous system, unsiloed, that can be continually refined and optimized. And you've got the principles here, but I will not spend it. The second way is it works to enable fast and constant feedback cycles through all the stages of the development lifecycle. You've got the principles here about swarming and solving problems, about pushing quality closer to the source, the core principles of DevSecOps, optimizing for downstream work centers as well. The third way seeks to create a culture of continual learning and experimentation with the development organization. And you've got some key principles here about enabling organizational learning, a safety culture, injecting resilience patterns in daily work, or leaders enforcing the learning culture. And this is going to be the priority for the next discussion as well. This is the space that we're going to have more discussion about how to upskill your teams to increase DevOps maturity. But first, let's talk a little bit about what does DevOps maturity mean. Usually, it's a set of capabilities and a set of skills. But what kind of capabilities, what kind of skills, it depends who you're asking. On DevOps capabilities, I try to summarize the ones that I think that they're important and pretty standard in the technology space. So whenever we talk about about DevOps capabilities, we usually talk about technical capabilities, which they focus on technology, ecosystem, or intelligent automation. They contain things like source control, CI/CD, environment configuration, compliance, testing, security, and cloud. Another DevOps capability is the monitoring one. They focus on measurement, monitoring and observability, monitoring of systems as a means to inform business decision and then failure notifications. The third one is product and process. They focus on agile, lean, IT service management, value stream mapping, product thinking, SRE, DevSecOps, design system thinking, those kinds of things. And at the center of it, intentionally, is cultural capabilities. They focus on the human aspects of our work, things like psychological safety, dynamic learning, transformational leadership, happiness at work, and why not diversity and inclusion. When we're talking about DevOps skills, there's usually a set of five major categories of skills that we talk about. The first one is automation skills. We need them to continuously drive value within DevOps. Then we work in technology, so obviously we need to talk about technical skills as a means to unlock potential for innovation and provide solutions for business problems. The third category of DevOps skills is around process and frameworks. We know that lean and agile practices are further amplified through similar efforts to achieve faster feedback loops and faster learning. Beyond achieving fast flow, DevOps is driving opportunities to provide measurement across the entire software development value stream for fast and continuous feedback. Then we got functional skills, or called IT operations, for example. Infrastructure and security are key to ensure customer satisfaction and to protect company brand. People are another category of skills, people skills. So things like collaboration, like problem solving, sharing, knowledge transfer, communication skills are essential. No matter what role or job one has, last year has demanded an incredible amount of flexibility, adaptability, and empathy that it will play a critical role in the new normal also. So we talked about capabilities, we talked about skills. What should you upskill? What DevOps skills should you be interested in upskilling? A good source of information is the DevOps Institute's 2021 Upskilling report, which is actually published a few months ago. So they talk about different kinds of categories aligned to the categories that I mentioned before. On the automation skills, we have things like continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, continuous operation and support, which includes analytics, AI ops, application performance monitoring, observability, IT service management, DevSecOps is another top 5 skills. So for each of the bucket, I try to focus on what is the most important skills that we should be focusing in 2021 to 2022. In the category of process and frameworks, the most interesting skills that we should be focusing on are around SDLC, the software development lifecycle, process flow and analytics, agile, Scrum, SRE. Technology skills include things like cloud compute platforms, so be it AWS, Microsoft Azure, GCP, SaaS, IaaS, PaaS platforms. Modern architectures, modern compute technology and architectures, so things like serverless, microservices, containers, operating systems, and container orchestration, things like Kubernetes and Docker, and application technologies, things like REST APIs, web apps, microservices, Capco, and so on. Functional skills talk about IT operations, IT infrastructure knowledge, security practices, SDLC, and architecture. At the heart of it, for the first time and the last time, I promise, is people skills. People skills, they focus on collaboration, problem solving, sharing knowledge, interpersonal, and communication skills. So let's look a little bit about how should you approach upskilling and how should you plan for it. We talked about the capabilities, we talked about the skills. We saw some things that are relevant for 2021 to 2022. But how should we go about upskilling and increasing those skills that we care about? The traditional approach to upskilling includes making an individual plan. So an individual plan is usually a mix between three things. We work with software engineering, so I took this opportunity to include a plan diagram here. It should be a mix between organizational needs, what does your company need, the organizational requirements that you can build to progress, and then things around competencies, what are you great at, the skills and knowledge you're good, and you can use them to distinct yourselves, and then passion. Also, what do you love doing? What are the activities that you perform out of love and desire? So we may call it a growth plan, an upskilling plan. We work direct reports with people that we coaching and mentoring, but we can help them build a certain plan. But rarely things go according to plan. Wouldn't it be great if our organizations would be better at self-diagnostics and self-improvement and skills at detecting problems, solving them, and multiplying the effects by making solutions available throughout the organizations? It turns out we can. We can if we do a couple of things. The first one would be to build a learning culture. The pillars of building the learning culture are no blaming and no shaming when problems occur. Only if problems are made visible, so that everyone can learn and profit from them, do solutions and knowledge appear. One of the core prerequisites for a learning culture is that when accidents occur, which they undoubtedly will, we are humans, we can make mistakes, and the response to those accidents is seen as just. If it's seen as unjust, it can impede investigation, it can promote fear in people, it can make organizations more bureaucratic rather than more careful, and cultivating professional secrecy, evasions of protections, things that I'm sure you've seen in your day-to-day work as well. When engineers make mistakes and they feel safe when giving details about it, they are not only willing to be held accountable, but they are also enthusiastic in helping the rest of the company avoid the same errors in the future. This is what creates organizational learning. On the other hand, if we punish the engineers, everyone is going to be incentivized to provide the necessary details to get an understanding of the mechanism, the pathology, and the operations of failure, which basically guarantees that the failure will occur again. Another thing we can do is to schedule blameless post-mortems. To help enable a just culture, one thing we can do is when accidents and significant incidents occur, for example, failed deployments, production issues that affected customers, is conduct a blameless post-mortem after the incident has been resolved. Blameless post-mortems are good because they help us examine mistakes in a way that we focuses on the situational aspects of failures mechanism and the decision-making of individuals close to where the failure occurred. And you want to schedule the post-mortems before memories and the links between cause and effect disappear or circumstances change. After you conducted a blameless post-mortem meeting, you should widely announce the availability of the meeting notes and associated artifacts to the rest of the organization. Things like timelines, chat logs, external communication, and so on are very valuable. This information should ideally be placed in a centralized location where your entire organization can access it and learn from the incident. Doing this helps you translate local learning and improvements to global learning and improvements, something that we're going to be touching on later on as well. Another thing we can do is to inject production failures in production. Another way to upskill at work and increase the resilience of the system is injecting faults into the production system, using things such as chaos monkey, for example. Resilience requires that you first define your failure modes and then perform testing to ensure that these failure modes operate as designed. One way we do this is by injecting faults in our production environments and rehearsing large-scale failures. So we are confident we can recover from the accidents when they occur, ideally without even impacting our customer. Another thing we can do is institute game days to rehearse failures. The concept of game days comes from the same discipline of resilience engineering. Your goal for the game day is to help teams simulate and rehearse accidents, thus giving them the ability to practice and learn in a safe environment. First, you can schedule a catastrophic event, such as a simulated destruction of the entire data center, to happen at some point in the future. You then give the teams time to prepare, to eliminate all the single points of failure, and then create the necessary monitoring procedures, failover procedures, make sure everyone has access, for example. They will execute the drills, and on the given date for the game day, you execute the outage and capture the lessons learned. But all these seem like small tricks if we don't have time for them. Wouldn't it be great if we have dedicated time for learning and improving? Turns out we can. Again, if we do a couple of things. We can create organizational learning and improvement for different variety of doing things. I captured 3 of them. The first one is around paying down the technical debt. You can schedule hack days, hackathons, dedicated time for improvements. I think 20% is pretty standard in the industry. And traditionally, these activities focus on product innovation and prototyping new market ideas, rather than on improving daily work, and worse, they're often restricted to just developers. The idea is to have attending team that span across the entire value stream. The goal is not to simply experiment and innovate, but to improve daily work, such as solving daily workarounds. Another day for daily hacks due to backfire at some point in the future. Another way is to enable everyone to teach and learn. A dynamic culture of learning creates conditions that everyone can not only learn, but also teach, whether it's through traditional methods, such as people taking classes or attending training, or more open methods, such as conferences, workshops, and mentoring. Mentoring has grown much in popularity in the last few years. I myself as well, I'm using Plato HQ, for example, to dedicate to volunteer some of my time to do mentoring sessions with people I don't know, and I think I can help with my experience in the past. One way that we can foster teaching and learning is to dedicate organizational time to it, such as institute a required number of hours of training per year, and some companies are using that as well. Another way is to share your experiences. In many cost-focused organizations, engineers are often discouraged from attending conferences and learning from their peers. To help build a learning organization, you should encourage your engineers to attend conferences, give talks, do pair programming, and experiment with mob programming as well. But could we make it better? Wouldn't it be great if local discoveries could become global improvements? Again, turns out we can, if we do a couple of things. One thing could be using chat-ops. Using chat-ops to automate and capture organizational knowledge. Integrating automation into the chat rooms helps document and share observations and problem solving as part of your daily work. This reinforces a culture of transparency and collaboration in everything we do. Chat rooms can record and make all communication public by default, in contrast to email, which are private by default. And chat-outs can be used for checking the health of services, pushing infrastructure changes, deployments to production, rollbacks, and so on. Another thing we can do is using monorepos, creating a monorepo. A firm-wide shared source code repository is one of the most powerful mechanisms used to integrate local discoveries across the entire organization. That's the reason why big companies such as Google, Facebook, Microsoft, they use monorepos. When you update anything in a source code repository, such as a shared library, it rapidly and automatically propagates it to every other service that uses the library. But we don't have to use monorepos just for code. We can use them for standards, for monitoring, for analysis, and tutorials. Another way we can do this is making non-functional requirements as part of your code. Implementing non-functional requirements will enable your services to easily be deployed and kept running in production, where you can quickly detect and correct problems and ensure that they degrade successfully when components fail. How do we apply all of this? And how do we apply all of this? And then I'm afraid I really have to use the consultant answer and say, well, it depends. It depends on your own context, it depends on your own domain, how large your team is, and how mature your team is, and so on. I can give you an example of something I've been using lately in order to make sense of it all. And this is the Cynefin framework. Cynefin is a conceptual framework used to aid decision-making created by Dave Snowden about 10 years ago. The Cynefin framework provides us with a sense of context, allowing us to make a sense of a situation and determining the relevant course of action, recognizing the theory of constraints and the fact that different problems require different approaches in how we tackle them. Cynefin offers 5 decision-making contexts or domains. We got simple, complicated, and complex, chaotic, and disorder. How does it apply to DevOps upskilling? Well, for example, understanding your own domain, you can choose what makes most sense to apply to help the teams upskill. For example, I wouldn't try applying any chaos engineering practices, resilience engineering practices, defining chaotic mode. Right? We need to act, sense, and respond, get out of that area, and then try to use some experimentation. So let's put all the pieces together. Step 1, do an assessment, run interviews, ask people about what should be in the upskilling strategy and upskilling plan. Step number 2 is understand the context and figure out what you want to prioritize. Ask yourself some of these questions. Do you have a learning culture in your organization? Are blameless post-mortems a part of the BAU, the business as usual? How well are they conducted? Can resilience engineering practices help you? Is your organization aware of the technical debt that has occurred? Do teams make steps enough to address it? Does your organization focus on learning and creating ways for people to learn and teach? Or is this seen as being expensive? How much do people share their individual experiences? How many of the local discoveries become globally important? Do you track them? And then step 3, whatever your plan, invest in it. It's not going to be happening up overnight. It's going to be not going to be cheap from the financial point of view or convincing the right stakeholders to support in your journey. But you can create a plan and you can invest it. So just do it. And this is the end of the presentation. So yes, I just wanted to do a shameless plug and say that we're working at Capco. We are hiring. If you have heroes, someone in this forum is interested in that as well. But that concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions that you might have. For sharing.
That was brilliant. Thank you, Kat. Thank you so much. Looks like Dan has a question. He's applauding. So that's always encouraging.
Applauding, not a question, sorry.
No, that's okay. Does anybody have any burning questions while we're still here?
I have a quick one. Thanks, Kat. That was really good. I just wondered if there was an industry standard. You mentioned that the 20% paying down technical debt as a fairly industry standard number, but I wondered if you had an industry standard number for the amount of time spent on training. Is there a typical amount of time to dedicate?
I know some of the companies have budgets for doing this as well. We have that as well at Capco. I know that IBM has that as well. I think IBM, for example, has the 40 hours per year standard in terms of offering that to the employees, but also making it mandatory for them to use that budget of training. At Capco, we have the same. We have a week per year to be able to spend, and whenever we can, about training and developing and learning courses as well. I mentioned the 20% as being basically industry standard because this is pretty much what we see as well in articles and blogs about how much should be focusing on technical debt. And then from my own experience as well, speaking with product counterparts, whenever we're trying to prioritize and whenever to try to look at a strategy roadmap and what we can actually deliver with the teams and the capabilities from the engineering side, is something that I would bring onto discussion because people need to understand it. People need to understand what technical debt is and how we can prioritize it, how we can work in it. It's not something that it should surprise us. And I've seen I've been in quite a lot of discussions as well what technical debt was. What was a question, but we just build the new stuff. Why do we have technical debt? And then you go into to explain what technical debt is and how even if you deliver something a month ago, you're still going to have some technical debt because you've made some assumptions, you made some decisions based on the scope on the thing that you had at that moment to propose. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, brilliant, thank you.
Anyone else have anything they would like to know? Anything you'd like to ask? Feel free to unmute yourselves and ask anything you like.
Will the slides be available? I've managed to take some screenshots, but I think I might have missed a couple. Yeah, be great. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be fine. Send them to me and I can get them sent out. That's fine. Mark, do you want to just send me your email address in the chat and then I can make sure I get them sent to you? Does anybody else want those as well while I'm at it? Lovely. Any other questions for Kat?
If there are no other questions, I'm curious about what the feedback on the slides and the presentation. Is this something you are aware of? Is this something that you're not aware of? Is this something helpful from today's talk? And I'm just trying to get some shameless feedback on this as well.
Lovely. Sorry, I'm just making a note of the email addresses that you guys have sent through to me. Bear with me. 2 ticks.
Kat, it was very interesting. One of the things I might suggest that a word that you introduce as well as upskilling is possibly maturing, because what I find is there's plenty of people in the teams that have experience, but what they actually need is more exposure to the same thing rather than necessarily learning new techniques. Perhaps they just need a little bit more opportunity to experience the same thing as what that they get to touch on every now and then. So I don't know if you've considered that.
That makes a valid point. So just not to scare people off that we need to complete set of new skills for using DevOps. That where we're coming from in terms of adjusting and adapting to the modern ways of working and the skills required by DevOps transformation, right? Yeah.
So I totally agree with everything you said, and I've come across some of it before. Some of it's new and sort of has pointed me in the right direction. So it is helpful. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for the feedback. Yeah. It's something that I did consider as well, but I was thinking about the upskilling as well in my initial slides as well as being something that we need to be actually doing and be doing it fast for success of us, for successful our companies as well. We need to upskill because of the new economy, the digital economy, right? And any economy has forces to push us in the directions. And it's an interesting subject as well about how much should we be upskilling, how smooth should that transformation be from an employee, from a company's perspective as well.
Yeah, I think as well it's difficult. to approach it. I've worked in sort of quite large government projects, you know, sort of 10, 20 sort of scrum teams, whereas the company I'm working in at the minute, very, very, very small teams, and you have to take a different approach. Whereas in the larger projects, we would set up developer days and, you know, sort of training, which would be scheduled like once a month in the allocation of time. Whereas now what I do with some of the guys is I set aside half an hour every single day, which is a drop-in point for them that if they feel the need, that they want to bring something, you know, and ask a question, whatever, there's dedicated time there that they know that they're going to get the support they need, rather than having to rely, you know, sort of on other people in a team. So and I find that seems to work quite well, that somebody knows that they have the opportunity to ask questions. Yeah, so I think that works.
That's a really good point on trying to focus on collaboration, providing a knowledge sharing environment with the teams as well, which yes, I agree is very important, because otherwise we're asking people to work individually and solve the problems, but the whole reason why we're together in this company, in this project, in this context, is to try to take advantage of our own individual skills and experiences from the past. And if we don't have the communication channels, we as leaders, we need to create those communication channels to allow the employees to work on.
Any other questions for Kat before I close the meeting today? I know we're a bit early, but you know. Lovely. Well, all that's left for me to say is I have got your guys' email addresses that you've sent me in the chat, so I'll make sure that Kat's slides get sent through to you. Thank you so much for joining us. This recording will be available on YouTube, usually next weekish, so that you can come back and revisit it if you want to as well. So yeah, thank you so much for your time, everyone. Thank you so much, Kat, for bringing that to us. And hopefully we'll see you all again at other CTO events. Thanks for coming.
Indeed.
Thanks, Abby. Thanks, Kat.
Thanks, Abby. Thanks, Kat.
No worries. Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.